Hello and welcome to our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name's Chris Cubbage. I'm the editor with MySecurityTV. Today we're crossing to Florida, USA with Jadee Hanson, CISO with Vanta. Jadee, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Jadee, it's always a pleasure to talk to a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. You've been with Vanta for some time now as well. So we're going to dive into your role as CISO with the platform, but then also your conversations with other CISOs and the general threat landscape that you face. Things don't seem to be changing. And also here in Australia, we've got some new legislation. We've got a new Cybersecurity Act sort of backing up a new, well, relatively new now, cybersecurity strategy. But yeah, maybe introduce us to your role as CISO with Vanta, and the platform itself is designed to help CISOs, right? So I suppose that's the sort of the key aspect. You've got a double-edged role.
Yeah, absolutely. So my team at Vanta, we have a number of different functions as part of it. I have the IT organization, we have the full security and privacy organization, and within that team, we have a governance, risk, and compliance team that uses our product extensively. And so we get to be customer zero and use every aspect of the product, working directly with the product team on changes that we want to see, edits that we want, and just feedback overall of how it's working for us, which is really fun and exciting and gives us a chance to kind of shape the product for users just like us. The other part of my team that is really interesting and unique is I have a group of subject matter experts that work across both of our product team as well as our go-to-market team. And so these folks are very deep in the GRC space. They understand it inside and out, and they are driving different features and functionality within the product itself, and then also having really deep conversations with our customers and answering specific GRC questions that come up and helping our customers kind of along their journey.
I suppose client zero, I really like that. It must be quite, you're almost in a loop of using the product and trying to see it first. Ideally, you want to see these any sort of improvements before clients do anyway. Maybe just talking in terms of you're the CISO for Vanta, so you've got that information security role. How do you approach that? Things like pen testing, bug bounty programs, as well as developing up the GRC, because it's also a growing company as well, right? So you're moving into different regions. We're here in the Asia Pacific and Australia. I mentioned new legislation which you need to respond to. So yeah, I suppose you got two hats. One is the company itself as a vendor, and then the others as a CISO role. How are you approaching the CISO role first? Because that's the sort of the primary role, really, isn't it? Keeping the platform secure in its own right.
Yeah, the CISO role, I mean, we're responsible for keeping the company safe and the company data safe, and that includes our customer data. And so there's a lot that we need to do to add the right protections, have the right maturity around our processes to continue that protection and safety of company data. We also play a deep role within product security and making sure that we're developing features and functionality within the product with security sort of in mind the entire time. And so we have a number of folks who partner directly with our engineering team to make sure that we're developing products and features securely. This includes like doing testing kind of throughout the software development lifecycle, but then also on the back end, making sure that we're doing the right pen testing and whatnot in order to continue to ensure that the product itself doesn't have any sort of gaps or vulnerabilities that need to be fixed.
And I understand you're coming through close to a releasing of a bug bounty program. How are you sort of approaching that, and sort of from the researcher side and ethical hacker side, what would they anticipate?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that we catch everything ahead of time and put the right guardrails in place so that vulnerabilities are caught before things enter production. That said, we know that as software releases happen, there's always some stuff that can fall through the cracks and like be introduced as part of a production system. And so we're launching a bug bounty program the middle of March, right around March 18th. We'll invite researchers into that program to help test our product and find anything that we might have missed along the way.
And I suppose the other thing from the client's perspective, I take it you're always welcoming from clients using the platform their feedback as well. But again, it's quite expansive, particularly on sort of the risk management and the compliance side. Where do you see the strengths are? Again, maybe putting the CISO hat on, using the platform. What are some of the key strengths that you see?
Yeah, the biggest key strength that I see is really around efficiency. If you think about the way that practitioners have addressed GRC in the past, everything has been very manual. All the certifications that we need to maintain, we have to run around the organization and collect screenshots and evidence, and all of that takes just an incredible amount of time. And it's very point in time. So not only is it timely, but it also is like very point in time. And what Vanta delivers and our really powerful offering is around like continuous monitoring and efficiency. And so that continuous monitoring collects evidence automatically. It shows when there's gaps, and it does this throughout the year versus a point in time check. The automation itself and our use of AI creates just an insane amount of efficiency within a program, so that you're not having to spend, countless dollars on additional headcount in order to keep up. You can rely on a solution like Vanta that captures that information for you.
So the focus there is on automation in terms of those AI tools and trying to automate that. Any estimations on sort of time saved or efficiency gain? Yeah, particularly from your team, are you looking at kind of giving that a metric?
Yeah, so we're a small team, but for our team alone, we estimated close to like 70 hours of savings a month just
Nice.
within like our small team.
Very good. The question is often, what are you doing with that extra time? But it's one of those things. That's almost a full-time person. Maybe how does it approach the frameworks? Is that sort of sucking in and we mentioned Australian legislation. New legislation gets released. Most countries are sort of developing this or always updating them. How does that work? Are you sort of sucking in new data from those frameworks and then applying it?
Yeah, absolutely. We have roughly, we're at like 37 different frameworks to date that are live in Vanta that customers can leverage. For us, we feel very strongly that we need subject matter experts in order to launch those frameworks. And so that work actually happens within my team, within GRC experts that know the space, have looked at frameworks their entire career, understand like what a control means, what a control is trying to test. And that team essentially makes these frameworks come to life in Vanta, connecting the right controls to the right tests to the right evidence so that it's just easy for a customer to pick that up and understand kind of where they are in relation to compliance to a standard.
Is that part of the challenge right now? You mentioned how many 30 plus frameworks. Yeah, that's what's some of the pain points that you hear from other CISOs, and that would generally be one of them. Is which one do you choose? Does this meld it together so they can sort of mix and match, and the other one is benchmark and compare how they're meeting different frameworks.
Yeah, absolutely. So the framework aspect, so we have 37 in total. I don't know that there's any customer that's using all 37, but we do have customers that do have, 8. They understand like they need to comply to 8 different frameworks. And the beauty of Vanta is that a test tied to evidence can tie to multiple different frameworks. And so, it's that concept of test once, collect the evidence one time, and use it across multiple different frameworks that really, again, goes to that efficiency play that I talked about before.
The other one here I'm seeing auditors. Are auditors able to use this platform, or do they Is it the client using it, and auditors come in and access the client's sort of Vanta platform? How are you working with auditors?
Yeah, I would say both. So auditors, it really is a product for a security team, specifically for a GRC team. That is who the product is for, first
Yep.
and foremost. However, auditors absolutely have like a role within Vanta. And so auditors can come in and they can look at the evidence that the customer has provided and is collecting to just streamline that whole audit process. The other thing that auditors can do is they can bring their request list into Vanta, and then Vanta can help sort of facilitate the evidence gathering so that the customer would see, hey, the auditor brought this request list. This is the evidence that we're suggesting that you send to your auditor. And the customer can make those decisions on as to, yes, this evidence makes sense. I want to send this to my auditor. I want to send that to my auditor. And again, going to that efficiency play, sort of supporting and streamlining that whole process.
Technically, it should be saving some time on auditors' costs. Is that and money? Is that a potential measure there?
So I don't get to decide what the auditors charge and time they take, but 100% it should save them time as well.
Fair. Okay. Well, you'd be nudging them to say, hey, maybe you're going to have to explain those efficiencies. The other one here is maybe the rollout and adopting the platform is sort of how does that work? Because GRC, can be a challenge. But you mentioned a lot of automation built in. What's the onboarding process again from a CISO's perspective? What would they be expecting the questions to ask, or sort of the time frame?
Yeah, the other sort of like beautiful part of Vanta is we not only have like the frameworks and the compliance aspect, there is every piece that you would likely see in a GRC team is covered within the platform. So vendor risk management or training and awareness or policy management, or even like your portal, your trust center portal that your customers would land on when they want to ask a question related to compliance. So that's kind of like the most beautiful thing about Vanta is like not only are we starting with like compliance and automation and evidence collection, we have all these different modules that support the GRC team in their journey. Most of our customers come to us first related to like getting a SOC 2 compliance certification, and they start to like leverage all the different modules as part of the Vanta platform in order to get that SOC 2 certification. So SOC 2 would tell you, hey, you need a risk management process. Well, guess what? Vanta actually has a risk management module built in, and you can leverage that to support your compliance journey.
Nice. The other sort of key challenge here in Australia is the SOCI Act and the like, and so there is a really big, it's an OT IT sort of challenge,
Mhm.
and then meeting those sort of reporting frameworks. So two pronged question here is one, OT IT, is it covering sort of the OT aspects of those related frameworks, and the other one is the reporting aspect of the platform. How sort of flexible is it in reporting?
Yeah, in terms of like reporting aspects, that has been a big, huge focus for us over the last 6 months. We've had like dedicated product management related to reporting. And so our reporting stack has been completely built out and really robust and fantastic. When we talk about like IT, OT, information technology, or operational technology, we are supporting both. And so as it relates to like, different IT aspects, yes. And then like most of what we're doing is like supporting process as well. And so you see a lot of like the process support controls as part of like the different modules in the product.
Nice. Is there any third-party plugins? And I'll come back to the reporting side of things for regulators and those kind of regulated industries. Is there third-party plugins? And I suppose again from the reporting side, management can come in and sort of see what the status is at any one time. How much control do you have within the platform itself for access and reporting?
Yeah, the reporting in the platform, again, like we have a whole reporting module. And so there's a section within the report that I look at that is like the highest level reporting details. It shows like percentage completed to compliance initiatives, tests that are failing, things like that. I also see like amount of revenue that my security compliance program is influencing based on views to my external trust center.
Nice.
Some of this reporting I actually use as part of like board reports when I'm talking about the security program holistically. And so, really strong in terms of reporting. In terms of integrations, the integrations are more on like the back end of the product. And so when you think about like all the compliance tests that you need to run, you need integrations to lots and lots of other security products. Today, we have a whole host of integrations built out. I want to say we have 300 plus different
Right.
integrations in the product. Um, these run the gamut of like access integration, so understanding who has access to what, to like pulling specific configurations for like cloud resources and whatnot. But all of these feed into those like ongoing continuous tests.
Nice. Okay. Well, it sounds pretty powerful. And I'm just looking it through. I mean, the other big one that we often hear is either third-party risk management and the like. Another big one here is zero trust here in Australia. There's a sort of a build of a zero trust culture. I suppose we might finish off with that in that approach. So maybe that's more principles, but it could be a framework. I take it it's adaptable to whatever sort of principles and approach the client wants to take. Does it adopt those kind of sort of like even Australia, essential eight, those kind of things, whether we want to call them principles or frameworks. How adaptable is it in terms of language? Maybe might be a more simple question for you, for the client itself, so they can understand it internally.
Yeah, so funny. I don't think we can like get through a webinar without saying zero trust at some
So
point, right? Yeah, zero trust to me means a lot of different things. And I personally think that like it is how you're architecting like more along the lines of like access and structured step up auth for like different resources. And so that's not actually what we do. Certainly we have like control frameworks that like tie to aspects of zero trust, but we're not necessarily offering like a zero trust type solution. So I just want to
no,
be clear about that.
no, absolutely. And I'm thinking how they maybe it comes back to that benchmarking question to a framework. And I take it that that's the way. But I literally just saw it yesterday from the Australian government of this is a new approach within the strategy. So I thought I'd at least raise it to you. But Jadee, I suppose the other last thing we move on is the threat landscape for you. How do you sort of see that? Do you see that changing? Very interesting times geopolitically at the moment as well. Just do you see? Yeah, what's your general observations at the moment, particularly talking to other CISOs?
Yeah, it's absolutely changing. It always is changing. I think that's the one thing that's like the most exciting and fascinating about the cybersecurity landscape is it is like just like this huge evolving thing all of the time. I think we're the only organization as part of a company that not only has to deal with like everything happening internally, but we're constantly being attacked externally, externally into our organization. And so, for us, like, I think that's what gets us excited. It, contributes to like the mission that we've all taken as part of being cybersecurity practitioners. I find it fascinating and fun and exciting. Some of the biggest things changing in the space, obviously, like the evolution of AI and what challenges that
Mm,
brings to our world. So not only, we see it, I see it both ways. I see a lot of like really fantastic advancements for security practitioners leveraging AI, but we also realize that any great technology that comes out for us to use is also a great technology that our hackers have the ability to use. And so it's kind of this like double-edged sword, and we have to like think about it in that regard. And so that offers different challenges for us. Certainly you mentioned it a couple times, but just navigating this like regulatory landscape where more and more regulation is coming out. Different regulation is changing and updating. And so staying on top of that and understanding like what's our commitment to all of that and what are the things that we should be worried about and doing. And then I also see a lot of like new threats tied to the supply chain vulnerabilities where attacking organizations might have trouble getting into company X. And so they'll leverage software supply chains to like get to company X. And so another thing we're kind of thinking of top of mind.
Very much. I think the regulatory environment reflects the risk. When the government has to sort of raise and all boats lift with the same tide, that's the intention. Hence why there's a real market opportunity there for Vanta. The other one is the adoption of AI. I think when you can adopt AI within a platform like Vanta, where you're doing the specialized work, allows that automation to come through a little bit more safely than companies doing it alone. But Jadee Hanson, I could talk to you all day. You've got what I would call a real job, but you're the Chief Information Security Officer with Vanta. Thank you so much for joining us there today, and enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for joining us on our Tech and Sec Weekly, MySecurityTV.
Thank you so much for having me.